Make every night a wonderful journey, no matter where you are. Good night, sweet dreams. The first story, The Single Cloud. It was a usual day in summer. Staying home, relaxing, trying not to procrastinate on summer homework. The Good Life School came, and I tended to make my mark. I was the star of the basketball team. Smartest kid in the 9th grade, and the ladies flocked to me. I was living the life, and summer was almost here. That's when everything began. The bell rang, announcing parties till 4 a.m. Drinking till they dropped, all the students rushed out in freedom. I was getting people to sign my yearbook, saying goodbye to my friend. The usual stuff as I was walking home. Darn it, forgot again. My name is Jack. Okay, back to the story. As I was walking home, I saw something very weird. A package was at my doorstep. A note was crudely pasted on the top with little or worn out tape. I yanked it from the top and read, "Keep this safe. Do not let anyone take it." I opened the box and what? A poster of that new species mascot of one of the areas. My cousin told me it was on the top. I was laughing my heart out. A cryptic message, telling me to keep a child's poster safe. The note. I decided to read again. There was some illegible lettering, perhaps Latin. I went inside, fired up my laptop. I went to Google Translate. I typed in the single word, contamini, and got, "Look closely." I looked closely at the poster and it was blank. How strange. The box had something in it now. A stone. It was beautifully handcrafted. Dark as night, it felt like a small basketball in my hands. A pitch black crescent designed the front and back. As I turned the stone to the top, I saw more Latin, this time clearly. I entered the words in Google Translate once again. Draco resurgent omnis puri, tori tempestatum in English, the dragon of storms will rise and all will perish at the. As much as I tried, I found no other evidence. I was crushed. I had to find out what this stone was. I knew I saw this somewhere, but where? Of course, I saw this during a field trip in Rome. I googled Rome and searched everything about it, until I got my answer. The stone I was holding. Translated into rough English, the scrolls containing the info were burned. Dark thunderstone. I held it up as high as I could. It glint a lightning blue hue sometimes, but I was worrying too much. Summer vacation was a blast. I managed to get invited to a beach party, and in less than 2 minutes, ladies were flocking around me. I answered their questions, ate lots of food, helped others with summer projects at my neighborhood. I did it in less than a week. Today was a storm, a pretty bad one too. I closed the curtains and locked the windows. I made sure that they were sturdy enough as well. The winds were treacherous. I went upstairs and looked at my stone again. It seemed to get electrical charges somehow. I had bookmarked that site and read more about the stone. It somehow reacts with the metallic properties of any kind of storm. Usually, high voltage lightning bolts illuminated as a brilliant blue hue. I stopped there. I wanted to see what was in the stone. I stepped outside, the wind slapping my face. I put an arm over my face to protect myself. The stone was throbbing erratically. How it did that, I don't know. The closer I got to my backyard, the more it throbbed. The storm intensified with every step I took. When I reached the center of my backyard, dead grass in a circle, I placed the stone and almost shot back 20 feet. The stone was glowing blue like the website said. It even showed a clip of it, but this was different. Instead of your usual glow, it began to form spirals. With every revolution, the stone floated, the wind howled, lightning crashed. I stood as far as I could go. It was too much. Darkness somehow escaped the stone and joined the revolution, increasing in speed, far too fast for the human eye to see. The storm swirled around it, forming a single cloud, growing in power, intensity. Then everything went still. The stone was in midair. I looked around. I couldn't see anything. Was it night? Be up, be up. What? Be up, be up. It's getting faster. Be up, be up, be up, be up, be up. Be up, 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 be up. WHEREWSITCUMINGFR. The stone it as hard as a heart, and it was beating fast. Too scared to move, I stood like a statue. Black and blue spiraled in the air, taking the stone with it. A huge vortex was formed in the clouds, and the biggest crash of lightning ignited my home. I was luckily uninjured, but I saw one thing as I faded into black, something too impossible to exist. Police came the next day. They found me unconscious and took me to the waiting ambulance. A little boy, who was my cousin, came and stormed into my room that day. I was in the hospital, in stable condition, no serious injuries. He came inside and decided to give me a present. A poster, it seemed. I thanked him, and I unraveled it. My face turned white at the image. It matched the monster I saw, the one who almost killed me. Z.K. Wrong. The second story. Movement cometh. Michael was a 12-year-old boy who lived in Point Pleasant, West Virginia. He lived with a small family of 3, since his father passed away when he was 7 in his middle school. He was in the Crypto Serdalio group. In fact, he was the leader of said group. He and his 5 friends, Ashley, Ben, Zach, Kylie, and Joshua, would meet in the science classroom and discuss different cryptids and urban legends. Every week, they would choose another cryptid to discuss, and another member to research it. They quickly threw the list of cryptids easily, from the Ahul to the Zanzibar leopard. Eventually, in December, they were at a loss of cryptids to research, until one member learned of another local legend. The Mothman. He told everything that he knew about him, and one by one, this cryptid grew on them. They argued over who should study it, when Michael, being the leader, announced that everybody would do this, as the Crypto Serdalio's final cryptid. He read everything he could about Mothman, and through reading the witness reports, found a possible hideout for it. Using all of the group's funds, they convinced the principal to give them a field trip to the West Virginia Ordnance Works, an abandoned World War IT factory. The bus driver drove 7 miles away from Point Pleasant and told them to come back if anything went wrong and to stay together. The 6 kids jumped off the bus. They slowly walked towards the first building of the Ordnance Works. Along the way, each kid muttered to each other about how the air smelled like smoke, and how freezing it was. Michael was the most excited. This was going to be amazing. He daydreamed about walking into the enigmatic-looking building and being startled by Mothman sitting up on a perch, then discovering Mothman was friendly and riding him far away on the breeze. He smiled at the thought, but was interrupted when he saw he was at the door. He nearly squealed with excitement as he opened the door and held it for his friends to come through. They crept through the doorway with their shoes making a dragging sound against the dirty vinyl floor. It came to a stop once they were all inside. Michael let go of the door and walked forward in silence. Everybody jumped when the door made a loud echoing slam that seemed to echo for hours. The building was dirty inside, with brick walls, broken machines here and there, and one shattered window, which was the only source of light in the dimly lit building. They stood there in silence for a second, before Michael broke the silence by taking a step forward. He looked back at his friends, and they followed his lead and came forward. They walked through the large main room, dragging their feet as they walked. Ashley glanced out the window and saw what looked like a raven or croaker, then fly away. She sighed, letting a cloud of warm air come out of her mouth, and looked ahead. Michael opened it for them to go through, atop a set of rusty stairs, though Joshua insisted that they go through another door. Just underneath the stairs, Ashley insisted yet another door. Zach, fed up with the bickering, suggested that they split up into groups. Zach went with Joshua, Ashley went with Ben, and Michael went with Kaylee. They agreed to meet at the bus if anything went wrong. Michael grabbed the flashlight out of his backpack and turned it on. He nervously smiled at Kaylee and continued on through the door. He opened it and closed it as he entered, which, again, made an echoing slam. They crept down the hallway, which was pitch black aside from the flashlight. They felt uneasy, as they couldn't see anything for feet away from them. "So, how are you holding up, Kaylee?" he asked, to lighten the mood a bit. "Fine, but something's off." "What do you mean?" "I mean..." She was cut off by the sound of the door slamming. They quickly spun around and heard slow, scraping steps coming closer. They stared in horror and silence as the steps became louder and louder. To dim, red lights appeared down the hall. Kaylee wanted to ask what they were, but her throat seemed to swell shut. The lights grew brighter and bigger as the footsteps became louder. Michael felt a chill run down his spine, and he stepped backwards. Nervously, there was one last step. Then they stopped. The two huge red lights seemed to glow. Michael's arm twitched as he slowly raised the flashlight to the lights. It shone to reveal a humanoid creature with glossy feathers. Its feet were scaly and green with long black talons that seemed to dig into the ground. Its shoulder and were tipped with long black wings, and its head, it seemed to be pushed down into its chest, and it had the huge red eyes, as big as dinner plates with no pupils and no light. Yet they still seemed to glow. Its mouth appeared to be either missing or covered by feathers. The two children stared at the creature, too scared to move. The creature stood there, motionless and expressionless. Michael attempted to whisper, "Run to Kaylee," but all that came out was a loud squeak. Upon hearing this, the creature's eyes seemed to become even brighter, and it let out a horrible, otherworldly screeching noise, which reminded Michael of a mix of a scream from a horror movie and an ambulance's siren. It unfolded its wings and charged at them. Michael screamed at Kaylee to run, grabbed her hand and tried to run, but Kaylee wouldn't budge. Her face was stuck in an expression of sheer terror, and she was staring the creature in the eyes. Michael tugged and tugged on her arm, but she wouldn't budge. The creature was practically on top of them. So Michael sighed and let go. He ran down the hall, gasping for breath. He heard a short scream, lasting for only a second, then heard nothing. The creature's eyes shone through the darkness and turned towards him. He screamed and sprinted down the hall. Thoughts raced through his head about what might happen if he was caught, and how he would escape. He looked around desperately for an exit or a hiding place, but to no avail. He glanced behind him and saw it gaining on him, and fast he felt his stomach turn, and sweat roll down his face. He turned forward again and tried running faster. As he ran, he saw a door on the side of the hallway. Michael gasped and ran ahead. He stopped quickly at it. Locked, he looked to his left and saw the eyes getting closer and closer. He screamed again and frantically turned the knob back and forth. Click! The door opened. He ran inside and left the door slightly ajar. He backed away behind a table in the room and prayed it wouldn't find him. He heard the scraping footsteps again, then heard them slow. He held his hand over his mouth so it couldn't hear him. He was so terrified that tears rolled down his face. Through the blur of his tears, he saw there was a hand mirror in the room, so he held it up to see behind him so that he didn't have to move. There it was, he yelped, and turned around to see his red eyes gazing down on him. He screamed in awe as the silent creature leapt over the table at him. Afterwards, when it was time to leave, Zach, Ben, Josh and Ashley met outside in the snow and asked each other if they'd seen Michael or Kaylee. Nobody had, so they sighed, puffed out Claire, and kicked their feet off of the ground. They were interrupted by a sudden ominous screech. They stopped sighing and turned to look at the building. The creature flew out of the shattered window. As it flew, it twitched and writhed and fell and rose. It flew as though it were broken. It flew directly over the kids and flew over the kids' heads. Something fell off of it as it flew by and landed on Ashley's hand. It was a drop of blood. It flew up into the sky, and it hasn't been seen since. Musnin, Ben mumbled, cometh. Where is it now? Please, dear reader, don't think about it too much. The third story, Parasect. Parasect's growth has been stunted by the mushroom that has resided on its back since birth. The mushrooms sink their spores into the host's brain, giving the parasitic mushroom total control over the paras. Due to being possessed for so long, the eyes have whited out, and the mushroom has drained almost all of the parasect's life force, which gives the mushrooms the energy to grow into a gross exaggeration of its former size. Once they are that huge, they take total control of the parasect's mind, creating a hivement with other host parasects to ensure survival. The mushrooms force the parasect to breed, and once the eggs are laid, the mushrooms coat the eggs with their parasitic spores, ensuring their offspring will wind up in the same dead-eyed and doomed fate they currently have. People have often asked the designer of Pokemon, Satoshi Tajiri, what is the story of Parasect? Slightly troubled by its cold and dead stare, and its sour and its unnerving Pokédex entries that describe this unfortunate Pokemon as basically possessed by the fungus. When the issue is presented, Tajiri becomes silent and somewhat withdrawn. He refuses to go further into the subject, although he refuses to openly talk about the subject. Several hints have been left behind. Whether they are purposeful or not is unknown, but what is obvious is that this Pokemon resembles a possessed bee. When this was presented to Tajiri, he simply replied, Parasect is simply a Pokemon, and nothing more. Stop overthinking it. On further investigations into the origin of the Pokemon, it is found that Parasect's original name was supposed to be Paraswiti, which related to a manga focused on a race of possessing aliens. The name, though, was forced to be changed due to copyright issues brought about by the authors of the manga Parasite. This information was almost disregarded until it was observed that Mount Moon, the home to Paris, was also the home to the alien race of sea fairy. This led people to believe that sea fairy's reason for being on Earth is basic and glitched to possess all known life.